Hey guys, my sincere apologies for starting late. I have had one last minute situation with the bloody computer to be to put it in a polite way, but I'm now with you. So if you can confirm that at least my audio is fine right now, we can get going. My apologies again. Okay, thanks, Michal, and again, apologies for the thing. So the way we want to run this one is to go through the questions one at a time. Hopefully, I will share my screen now so you can see all the questions posted by everybody. If you can see them now, so can you see our Google Sheets list of questions? Perfect. Thank you, Raimondo. So without further ado, we keep going. I have read through all the questions beforehand, so where possible, I'll jump ahead on some of the issues. We've also got my brother and co-founder Javi on the webinar, so he'll jump in, or I'll just ask him to answer the questions there directly. Okay, so without further ado, let's go with this first question, which was posted by an anonymous user. And the question was whether we plan to change the minimum investment sizes for accessing the Darwinex platform, which are currently set at €500 for trading accounts and €200 or the sterling or dollar equivalent for Darwin investments. So the reason we set the account sizes at this level was twofold. One is that back in the day, this is 4 years ago, when we were a startup broker, we felt as though people would legitimately doubt about our solvency and would probably want to give us a test in terms of, does my money come back? How good is my customer service? Do the real life trading conditions really correspond with what I see on demo and so on? That was kind of one of the reasons, kind of to give people the benefit of thinking that we're a small test, worth a small test. And the other one was that we don't want that valuable users who really believe in the Darwinex concept are left out because they don't have an account large enough to be able to enter. And we stand by that because it's part of the vision. Now, this has to be set against some people who think that all the kind of buckets of brokers are the brokers where minimum deposit sizes are $500 or $200, and you can leverage yourself to the bones and the infinite beyond, and they put Darwinex in that same category. So we stick by the vision. This hasn't really changed. It is true, though, that we are FCA regulated and therefore bound by the ESMA regulation. And this means that it has become trickier to trade with the minimum contract sizes we have at the moment with just a €500 account. So for now, this means no changes short term. We are thinking of raising the minimum investment to a still affordable level, but at this point, I cannot give you any more details. What I can say is that the vision is there. We have to balance that vision against economic criteria, because in some cases, these very small deposits come at a cost to us, and we cannot really subsidize them for customers who don't really value the vision. And we'll try and find a compromise for that. So the answer is, for now, they stay the same, but this is something that stays on watch, even though the vision dictates that we keep the accessibility to everybody. I hope that long and winded answer clarifies our stance on this one. And again, if somebody feels like they have further questions on my answers, I am reading the live chat right now, so I'll be happy to expand on any extra points. Okay, so the next point was, first of all, thanks for all the improvements. So really, thank you for the guys who give us the feedback. Just so you know, we share any feedback we get, whether good or bad, in an internal Slack channel with our development team. So everybody is on watch and understanding how people perceive our offering. And we're really grateful when we get feedback, good or bad, but hopefully constructive. Then when it comes to exotic currency pairs, our issue is that we are a DMA broker. We don't run books, and the pairs that have a lot of volatility, don't have the same liquidity, so it makes it tougher to scale on the Darwin model. And secondly, they pose more risk for us from a counterparty standpoint. So I don't think we have an appetite to start going into more exotic currency pairs at this point. So I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I think for now we're comfortable with the currency pairs we've got. But yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Javier, there is another reason why we haven't decided to offer these instruments. If you take into account how the risk engine works of the Darwin, right now it needs that the volatility is more or less stable compared to other currencies. In case we add one of these, we could have some shocks, with certain Darwins that are trading this underlying currencies, because maybe they could lose even more than this 20% maybe in a month, or even in 1 week, or even in hours, if we use the same criteria that we use currently with risk manager. So it's dangerous for investors if we allow traders to trade these assets.
Mm-hmm. And that actually comes in handy for the next question, which is asking if we could offer a 1-to-2 leverage for cryptocurrencies, which LMAX already does. And obviously ESMA also allows. So again, the reason for that, I suspect, Javi, is related to what you just mentioned, right? The volatility for cryptocurrencies changes.
Here is another reason, is that we close the market during the weekend, and we cannot tolerate a huge movement during the weekend that could bring some customers to enter into negative equity. That's the reason why we decided to let this as 1-to-1. The LMAX, I think since 2 months ago, allows to trade during the weekend in the cryptos, but we didn't want to open it because our bridge provider, both bridge providers, they make some restarts of their servers during the weekend, so we could not be sure, and we don't control these restarts, so we could not be sure to offer the 24 hours trading around the weekend. No, that's the reason why we decided not to open it.
Okay, so that's that, and we don't really have plans to change that in the in the future. I mean, we think 1-to-1 is plenty of leverage with cryptocurrencies as well, in order to make good returns, to be honest. Then do we plan to introduce other instruments that are most liquid, like ETF, options, and futures in the near future? If so, have you got a release date? So to start by the end, we don't have a release date. We are in order of interest, I guess futures would be by far the more appealing element to us. As those of you following us for a long time have probably heard us say, we have been evaluating the business case for futures for quite some time. There are non-trivial difficulties in extending the Darwin concept onto futures. There are several elements. One is how to manage the rollovers, how to manage the risk, the fact that at present the Darwin concept follows a replica trade, so it's not possible to trade spreads or make markets with futures. So there are a number of hurdles which we have identified, which will take significant development time, and we are not currently tackling that because we have decided to first close off the Darwin asset before we really expanded onto other asset classes other than equities, which is already in the pipeline. So we have a plan to introduce equities-based Darwins in the near future, but this user hasn't really mentioned the equities. Then second in line would be futures, possibly not in the first half. I mean, at the very, very earliest, if at all, It would be done in the second half of 2019, but currently we're not working on it. And then ETFs and options are not even on the radar at this point. The reason is being that for options, that would entail a complete overhaul of a complete expansion of the risk management engine to account for the Greeks, and currently the risk engine is built for Delta One products, so it could do futures, it can do equities, it can do FX, and anything which has a Delta One, but we haven't gotten into expanding onto the Greeks, so no options. Javi, anything to add on that one?
No.
Okay. So on the FCA website, there is written under permissions that you can act as a principal, i.e. as a dealing desk without limitations, which is in contrast with what is stated on your website, non-dealing desk, STP, DMA. Can we clarify? Thanks. Okay. So we had to change our permissions earlier this year in order to provide negative balance protection to retail customers. In fact, the ESMA intervention made us choose between either giving up on our DMA model by guaranteeing negative balance protection, or giving up on our agency only permission, which is what we had before. So before the ESMA change, we had a permission to act as a principal with a match principal restriction. So the way we operate right now is we have the permission, as Raimundo clearly specifies, to run a dealing desk. However, we don't at present. If we were to run a dealing desk, we would clarify to customers in a transparent way, the way we've always done. But we will never have a conflict of interest with customers, and we don't currently run a dealing risk, nor do we plan to run one. Okay, so we have the permission to do it, yes, but we choose not to run a dealing desk because we don't think it's in the best interests of our customers. Raimundo, I know this is a difficult question, but I'm very happy to expand on that as we go along. If you have any further questions, that's how we run it at the moment. So there's a question by Alex on when we'll have an Mac OS trading platforms available on Darwinex, and the answer is I believe there are ways to run our MT4 on Mac systems. Either you can run a kind of a virtual engine like a VMware Aware or Parallels, but there also are specific macOS solutions to run MT4 on Mac, and you can contact our customer support who will be happy to assist on how to do that. So Halbu, there's Masukri Posa, he wants to do money, and so do I, but he forgot the question there, so we'll skip that one. Then we have Halbu, who says, what our plans are to attract the best traders to Darwinex. Are we going to reach out to successful traders, managers on other platforms and lure them to your platform? And the answer is we have been doing that quite successfully for the last year and a half. I think many of the best traders with competitor sites are already listing their Darwins, or have even chosen to not list the strategies on any place other than Darwinex. So that's our bread and butter. That's what we do. We also have the scouting program, which rewards you for bringing them on to Darwinex. So if you're not familiar with it, check it out. So check out the scouting program Darwinex. I'll just write it here, because there's a reward for bringing the best traders to Darwinex, which is attractive because it gives you lifetime share in our investor revenues in those traders. So Halbu asks, what are our plans on developing community sentiment indicator? There's currently a Darwin API in a closed beta that gives customers access to individual Darwins for trading purposes. That allows you, amongst other things, it gives you real-time market price for all Darwins. So if you're smart about building a correlation engine with existing assets, you can start doing some fancy work with that. The plan is over time to offer an API where developers can tap into the real-time community sentiment and trade on that basis. We are experimenting at Darwinex Labs with some indicators like that, and we think it's a very promising feature, basically. So our plans, it's absolutely on the roadmap as part of the deepening of the Darwin asset to make more and more community data available to our community in order to improve their odds at success. Hope that answers that question. Actually, on the MT4 question, I've got our customer support team on the line, so I'm going to put the answer so you can check out how to do that if anybody else is interested. So that's that. Ghost Dennis is asking how to check which trades of my portfolio make divergence worse. This is a very, very legitimate question, and it's a long-standing battle horse for us. So the best way to check right now, Ghost Dennis, is probably to get in touch with our support, and we can do a one-off run to get you the kind of a download of the latest trades with the detailed stats, so you can see which trades it was that are creating the issue, and we can hook you up with a trader who will give you advice on that. That's kind of the short-term fix for tomorrow. In the long run, we are working on a Darwin Manager platform, which will, amongst other things, give you control over the execution for investors and give you transparency as to what drives the divergence, so that you can take full ownership of investor performance. So that is very much in scope. So Tim is asking, how to best size a small account with the smallest impact on alterations of the portfolio in regards to Darwinia? I think many are interested in that. I mean, I guess this goes back to the risk stability and risk adjustment badges. I think, Tim, we've spoken about this one before. This probably makes for a dedicated webinar, which would explain what happens after you push the button and your investors get filled, and then how changes to your lot sizes actually affect investor lot sizes. So, you can take me out on that one. I think this one is worth creating a dedicated webinar about. I don't think that we can really realistically tackle this one in the time we've got. But it is a relevant one, because we've seen quite a few misunderstandings about how Darwinia works or it doesn't work. So I guess the answer to this is dedicated webinar. Apologies, but otherwise we could stay here for forever. Then the other one is tick data on how to convert our history data to basically, I guess, an MT4 compatible format, so you can backtest. Your point about whether or not Python is valid for the masses, Tim, I have to disagree with you on this one, in that we see that the sort of users who can make the most of tick level data are quite familiar with Python. You tell me that you checked with Ali and there was no answer. That's not good. So I'll ask Ali to chase this one. So Ali to chase team on how to do this one. I believe, having said that Ali has written a blog post on how to do that. So it's a question of getting you to the blog post which explains it. Okay, so Bernard is saying that it's been over a year that he's invested in our platform and he's losing money. He's listing a bunch of traders in here. So I guess what he's saying, I guess you can read this as I do. Despite the two numerous indicators, we feel that there is no rule that allows us to secure our investment and to be truly profitable over the long term. So we have published a set of podcasts on how to make the most of the platform as a passive investor. And there are some rules on what to do and what not to do that we have also explained in a podcast in Spanish. There is a paid investor course in Darwinex Education, which provides access to the best we know in terms of approaching the asset class. There's a question by Bernard, if there really are profitable investors, what is the percentage? I don't have the numbers to hand, but I can say that for sure there are profitable investors. So people are doing quite well. Some of them are actually publicly posting their portfolios in the community. So some people have figured out how to make money. Then there has been a deterioration over the last few months. So we had a very good August. We've had a pretty bad, generally speaking, October, November performance for particularly the best Darwins. We are having a pretty good December to date. I mean, ultimately, we're providing an asset class. We're not providing any advice because we're trying to learn ourselves the best way to use it. We know it is possible to make money because we have quite a few users who are making good, consistent money, and we have gradually improving a trader stock. I guess part of this is that if you approach the asset class as I'm going to go into a year and make money from the start, well, maybe you have to approach that the way that you trade with stocks. Some years you make money, some years you don't. That's one way to look at it. What is the benchmark? And the other one is there is a learning curve, which others have mastered. And I can really encourage you to try and figure for yourself, because yes, the answer is there are profitable investors and they're making more and more money. I'm happy to take this one offline as well if you want to discuss with me to explain the best ways to get access to the Darwinex education site and so on. But basically, we're providing you with what we think are the best tools. We know of people who are making money, and it certainly is possible. But you have to keep trying because there's no safe and fireproof way. I guess that's all I can say on that one. Then, Javi, anything you want to add?
No, that's what you said. Probably we faced the worst returns of the history of Darwinex in, I think it was September and October, not November. November has been a good month for investors, and December is being a really, really, really good one. But it's true that September and October has been really, really, really bad. So I think you need to think more about the long term, and because they were, so for example, we have a robot that is investing in more than 80 Darwins, and we suffered also during those 2 months, and we are recovering a lot. So, I mean, it's a matter of probably it's a matter of trying to study the asset class using the Darwin API. Once we launch it, I think it's the best way to be sure and to demonstrate that it's possible to make money.
Okay, so Bernard, I mean, I'm very happy for you to reach out to me on my personal email address if there's something you want to discuss in further detail. It's juan@darwinex.com. But I think that's basically that's how we see it. And I'm sorry that you're not making money right now. Okay, so Halbu is asking, will we provide alerts for investors, as in unusual behavior of a Darwin or more useful a new Darwin that meets filtered criteria? So the answer is, again, the Darwin API will allow those who want to use it to build their own custom alerts. It also paves the way for people who are tech savvy to start building applications for others who value that, but don't really have the appetite or the time to learn how to program. The other element that I would draw your attention to is also the kind of the conditional orders in the system. So take profits, stop losses, buy limits, and so on. So that provides you with a good tool to try and leverage kind of movements in the price of Darwins. And then when it comes to unusual behavior of a Darwin, there's the built-in risk management engine, which will of course filter out any large increases, for instance, in leverage. And then a new Darwin that meets filtered criteria. I believe this is possible with the filters you've already got, unless I'm mistaken. Javi, did I miss that?
No, but maybe he's saying more on the short term, no? I don't know. The problem here is internally we discuss a lot of how many features we should give to the users, because the more features we give, the more complex gets the product and more difficult is for newbies. No, so our strategical decision has been, okay, let's try to give all information through the Darwin API and let people create a lot of tools so that they can share them, and each user can decide which tool that he wants to use. No, this is more or less why we are not going deeper, making more and more tools available for the users, because it's not that easy in terms of usability to add more and more things, because there are people who they don't really care about all these tools. No, that's so it's not that easy part to how to decide to fill out the product.
So I guess and I guess it's worth pointing out, so collectively one decision we have made is that we want to gradually change the way we onboard users into the investor platform. So right now we offer all the bells and whistles that it has, and there's a lot of bells and whistles by default, which means a lot of people are actually intimidated and sort of not making the best decisions because there's too much toolkit to do the stuff. And gradually the way we want to approach this is to simplify the initial interactions and then allow users to make the most of the platform by activating features as and when they're ready to make the most of them. So that's, I think, will become clear over the next year as we roll out new product releases. But in general, we will try to build the complexity up as opposed to give it all raw and then have users wonder what the hell is this, because it's becoming a pretty complex platform. It's very sophisticated, but it's also complex. On the filters though, Javi, I mean, is it not possible to find new Darwins that meet certain filter criteria? I mean, is it not added automatically?
Yes, and you can do that, and in your filter is automated, automatically updated each day. But we received many feedback to add more and more filter criteria, and that's what I'm saying, that for now we prefer to put our efforts in launching as soon as possible the Darwin API so that people can do that by themselves, or using, as I said, tools from other users, because we know from firsthand that there are already beta testers that they are creating their own tools, and for sure there will be people that are willing to share these tools to the entire community. That's our vision, how things should work in the future. Yes.
Okay. I mean, yeah. So basically, we want to create an ecosystem where the community, like basically what we've realized is that as we've grown, our own development capabilities have become a bottleneck to the product, and then also a lot of customers want different things from the product. So the best we can do is basically make it open source and see which use cases establish themselves as kind of the default options for the platform, really. So there's a long-standing questions about when to do features. So let me put it this way. We know the Darwinex concept has a strong institutional potential if and when we offer exchange-listed assets over and above CFDs, which are useful, but leave out a significant portion of the more professional managers. So we are totally committed to adding features to the offering. But at present, we want to bring the asset full circle with the API and a bunch of other things that we will talk about in 2019 to really bring the asset, the Darwin asset full circle. So conceptually, first we want to round off the teething issues that we have in the Darwin platform, open up the API so that people are free to use the underlying backbone as they see fit. And then the next thing is to really add exchange traded assets, starting with equity CFDs, like Darwin's based on equity CFDs. Then hopefully with a couple of deals, we're looking at cash equities and then exchange listed futures, with the provision that obviously with futures, we will need radically larger minimum investment into the Darwins because of the larger ticket sizes on the exchanges. Okay, so by all means, futures will be part of the equation, but there's a technological challenge to be jumped that we will only tackle once we finalize the Darwin asset. So the Umbilo is asking, I'm Italian but Bahraini resident. Why I cannot open an account with Darwinex? So I wanted to extend my apologies for collateral victims of the craziness in KYC and AML that is assaulting the industry. So it's becoming insanely difficult for FCA regulated brokers to accept payments, bank-based payments from outside of the European Union. And depending on a number of changing criteria in terms of AML compliance, corruption indices, a whole bunch of things that compliance people keep coming up with, it's becoming more and more difficult. So I don't know the specific reason why you cannot open an account with Darwinex. I suspect the biggest reason from what you're saying here is that we would have trouble accepting bank payments done via Bahrain. If you have a bank account in Italy, it would make things a whole lot easier being an Italian citizen. That's kind of the best practical advice I can suggest at this point. So Asder is asking, will we make any new investors program with more advanced information? I don't know what you mean by more advanced information. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know of any platform in the market that offers as advanced information as we offer.
But what I think is the investor program, I think he's related to the Darwinex education program, probably.
I don't know if Asder is online. I mean, we would be happy to kind of take the questions on that. Because at this point, I think we already offer like a pretty advanced information, and as some other users were saying, it's it's kind of complex as it is right now.
But if it's asking about the Darwinex education program for investors, I think he's asking for that. So right now we have decided to do just one program, which is dedicated for those investors who are willing to invest passively.
Okay.
And are newbies in Darwinex, and for sure, if we see that there is a relevant demand on the program, and people start asking us to give another or to create an advanced program for, let's say, traders from Darwin's, we will do it. Yes. For example, we are planning to do, or we have in mind to do ones related to the Darwin API, how to make the most using the data and explaining everything we have learned in Darwinex labs, studying all the Darwins. So all the know-how we have learned, our idea is also to make a dedicated program for that.
Okay, I'm just looking up on the web to get the. Yeah, so I've just looked up. The next question was, there are many podcasts in Spanish that contain useful info for investors. Please consider adding an English.
There's another one first, the backtest.
Okay, so the backtest tool is amazing, but I hope it's the start. Do you have plans to make API accessible to investors that lack programming expertise? GUI, I mean. So our plans are really to release the API, and we have already seen several users who have built amazing backtesting tools off the back of the API. There was a recent community forum thread with a user, I believe Paduel is the name, who's already built several interesting bits. So feel free, as the 34, to email us, because our team will happy to point you in that direction. So the answer is, do we plan to make API accessible to investors that lack program expertise? And the answer is we will not do it, because we are kind of very resource constrained, but we see a lot of potential with users tapping into other users, because there's this joint use cases that they can leverage.
But the current backtest we launch, of course, we are going to improve it. So right now we launch it with the first iteration of the tool that we are willing to do finally. So, but we would like also to have received feedback from customers to know exactly what they want.
Okay, so that's kind of the answer to that one. Then there are many podcasts in Spanish that contain useful info for investors. So we have done. I did a series of 13 podcasts, which basically condensed the best of the Spanish podcast, which has become a pretty big success for us. So that's already there. I think if you check it out, and it's actually posted on our blog with written summaries. So if you check Trader Movement Podcast online, this will take you to the Trader Movement Podcast, which you can see actually in the different order, but they have a sequence. So they start from 1, and then they gradually build up from 1 to the next one. So starting with 1, then number 2. It's a reasonably structured approach to explaining why Darwinex and how the platform works and why it's done the way it is. So I'm happy to say this one we've already done, and you can find it on the blog.
Yes, but also there is the
Darwinex education.
Darwinex education, which is translated to English, and it's there. It's public for everyone.
So the Darwinex education, I think we had a link to it further up in the, for anybody who wants to have a look at it. I'm currently in Spain, so it's showing the Spanish version, but you can see it. The English version is also available. Okay, so that's that. So will we provide system alerts for investors? No, sorry. There's another one which was related to this one. Yeah. Adding a criterion based on the equity of the trader to access the biggest Darwinia prices was a good idea. Well, thank you, because that's been quite a controversial decision, but we think it was the best to do. It would be better if the underlying strategy VAR was considered as well, so with the trader's equity combined. I suspect what this means is that we should combine whatever investments the trader has in his own Darwin, as well as the trader equity. So if that's what you're saying, then we agree. The reason we haven't done it is kind of, it hasn't been implemented in terms of technical issues yet. If that's not what you're saying, then I think I'm missing something.
No, Juan, probably he's saying that we should consider the risk that the underlying strategy is taking, because it's not the same to have 10,000 equity but trading with a VAR of 1%, which you're risking 100 euros.
Okay. Yeah.
And then someone that trades with 2,000 euros, but he's also risking 5%, which is also 100 euros. I think the reason I agree that this should be the way we should measure it, but we decided not to do it because not everyone in the platform knows this kind of things. So people will start asking us what we call this equity at risk. Okay, what does this mean? No, and for them it's maybe it's not that easy to change the equity risk that changing his equity in his account. It was more a commercially reasoning than logical reasoning for that. For now, we are going to keep this like as it is, but probably we could also consider the equity invested in his own Darwin as part of the equity considered for the price. This is something a lot of people has requested to do, and we probably will, but not in the short term.
Okay, so that answered that one. Then there's a question here on whether Darwinex plans to implement the feature to receive email alerts on Darwin investment drawdowns. It is required by MiFID II to send alerts on minus 10% fluctuations when providing portfolio management. So I would be very worried if you have not received this, because this has been implemented into the platform. I don't know what the specific context to this is, but this has been implemented.
No, but I think the problem here, I don't think it's implemented because what the problem here is, what do you consider 10% fluctuation? Because it's not exactly the return on your, how do I measure the return? This is the point, no? Imagine do I calculate it based on the Darwin? Do I calculate it based on the portfolio? Or if I do it based on the portfolio, what equity should I consider if you do some withdrawals? So we came to a point in which we said that this is almost impossible to do the way Darwinex works. But at the same time, so I think this is more to protect. So when MiFID II was done, it was more to protect people who lack of completely transparency on the way they display the information. And for you, I mean, it's you can see that in real time at any time whenever you go to your terminal. So we thought about that because of the criteria of what we should do was impossible to define. This is more or less what we found out when we read this thing. So, and we said it's everything on the website. What can we do? So it's, I don't know. So imagine someone who, as I said, someone who starts investing with 10,000 euros, and suddenly he removes 9,000 euros, and then he loses 100 euros. What equity should I take into account to define that he has lost 10%? That's the point. And the calculation, when we started doing this, we find out that we could not define a criteria in which we could even, if we did that, we could even misinform our users depending on what criteria we use. That's the reason why we decided to give all the information in real time, so that people know exactly what they are having at any time.
Okay, so CFD trading conditions seem better at IG than they are at LMAX. I would like to see to which specific CFDs we refer, but I'm not sure that's the case. Having said that, if it were the case, would it be possible to trade your own account under IG, yet get the signals copied at LMAX for investors? The answer is no, but nothing stops you from trading a very small account with us if you think you're better off having your large account with IG and still listing this for investors. Having said that, I would be keen to hear, Dieter, in which ways could we improve our CFD trading conditions compared to IG, because we like the LMAX trading conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Javi, any thoughts on that?
No, I don't know exactly how good IG is, but I can say that we tested a lot of liquidity providers, not IG, to take the decision to go to LMAX. So I can imagine that probably, I don't know if it's talking about oil or probably, or I don't know which asset he's saying it's worse than IG. Right now I know he should send us an email and we will study what he's saying.
Yeah, but our goal is to have as good conditions as IG or better, really. So,
yes.
you know, that's kind of because you shouldn't have to ask yourself that question. If we're doing, if that's where we are, then we need to improve. But I don't think that's where we are, to be honest. Then Aster34 is asking, do we intend to allow Darwin portfolio managers to receive commission rewards? Not sure what he means. I mean, is this basically building a business model for portfolio managers to resell their portfolio? If that is the case, we are experimenting with some technology internally whereby it would be possible to purchase a portfolio of Darwin's. We have no plans to release this out to the public, but it's something which we're working on to experiment technological performance and also which possible business models would be both compliant, good for the end investor, and enable a viable business model for portfolio managers. So this is an area we're experimenting. We don't want to commit to any release because we will take time, or maybe we would never give it up to the public. But it's an area where we're doing some technology experiments at the moment. Yeah, that's where we are. Javi, any thoughts on that?
No, that's true. That the problem with allowing the replica of portfolios is that the issue with the capacity of Darwin's. That, for example, or for instance, the master account could invest in a Darwin, then it gets closed, and the follower cannot copy or cannot invest in that Darwin because it's closed. No? And that's the reason why we decided not to offer this solution, although we are preparing it for ourselves in case we decide in the future to provide asset management services so that people can invest in portfolios that are created by Darwinex.
So it's an area we're exploring, and we already have institutional investors allocating funds to Darwin's via structured vehicles. So that would be another option for investors who are doing very well, doing a very good job of Darwin portfolio allocation. So there's a question here which ended up in Spanish, which I'll just translate for the benefit
maybe
of
you could answer that tomorrow, no? Because this is too related to Spain, I think. And we have another webinar tomorrow in Spanish.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess one general point is that there's a payment option called Trustly for anybody based in the EU, whereby for the largest markets they can do a national transfer via the Trustly platform, and that way the tax authority will not register that as an international payment. So we'll discuss that tomorrow. But I mean, amongst many of the benefits of Trustly is that you will not be wiring monies overseas, and you would save the transfer costs. And then the last question is by Michael. Is Germany interested as a target market for Darwinex, and are marketing materials planned in German language? The answer is Germany is by very, very much so an interesting market for us. We, as a coincidence, I guess the founders, we all went to German school, so we're bilingual in German, and there are several very good German Darwin providers. So the next language in which Darwinex will be available will be German for sure. How fast that happens depends on a number of conversations we're having with potential distribution partners. But yes, the answer is if we were to add a new language to Darwinex, it would be German, no question about it. And please reach out to us if you want to have more specific feedback on that one. Javi, any more thoughts on that?
No. Maybe you should answer to the question. I think we could. You left a question about how to increase your equity so that you can get more prices in Darwinia and not affecting your investors. No, I think there's
okay. Yeah, no, I promised to do a webinar on that one, more generally on Darwinia. But if nobody has any more questions, we would be happy to tackle that one now for the benefit of, I think, Tim, which is who's the one that asked.
Tim, no? Please describe how to best size up a small account with the smallest impact in alteration of the portfolio in regard to Darwinia. I think many are interested in that. Juan said he's going to do a dedicated webinar, but I'm thinking of also writing a huge blog post. I will do it myself, because we see continuously questions about how does increasing your equity affect your VaR, and how it affects your risk stability grade and all this stuff. In general, whatever increase in your equity must be followed by exactly the same increase in the lot size you do in your trading. For example, if I increase it by 100%, then I should double my lot size in my trading account. In case you don't want to increase your lot size, the best way, so that you don't get hit by the grade in the risk stability grade, the best way is to adding equity in a period of 1 month or 1 month or 2 months, adding it, for example, each 5 days. Imagine you want to increase 100% your equity. Let's say, okay, I'm going to put 20% in 5 days. In 10 days, I'm going to put another 20%, and so on. So that you do that progressively in 2 months. In that way, your risk stability is going to decrease, but not that much, because you are doing it in a long period. The problem is if you put the money in a just one movement, and you don't increase your lot size accordingly, then immediately your VaR is going to get a hit, and probably your risk stability is going to affect. Not only that, also your investors will not receive the total leverage at the Darwin is going to have less volatility during a period of time until the VaR normalizes to the new level. So, as I said, the best way to avoid that is to increase accordingly the leverage to exactly the same percentage as you're adding equity to your account. This is the point. To have
not the leverage, the lot size, no?
The lot size, yes.
So keep the leverage constant and increase the lot size proportionately.
Yes, and if not, do the increase in 2 months.
So yeah, basically the answer, Tim, then would be yes, that we will do a blog post. Typically, Javi writes the blog posts. If I see that it's too complex, then I'll probably do a webinar to try and explain in more with more practical examples. But ultimately, the way the algorithm is calibrated is that it has a 2-month look back period. So you have to do that in whatever changes you have to target to implement fully over 2 months in incremental steps. Otherwise, you will take a hit on the risk adjustment or risk stability grade, which will lower your grades and therefore impact on your Darwinia ranking.
No, and it can impact in the volatility of the Darwin too. So it's better to do that gradually.
Yeah. Okay, so that was a lot of questions and quite a significant attendance. I really like the engagement. Thank you so much for bearing with us. And then happy to, if you have any more questions, we can take that now. Raimondo is recommending a couple of good books on money management. So if you have any specific books in mind, Raimondo, I'll be very happy to pass on your recommendations. I guess I would also encourage you to visit the community forum for these kind of questions, and you can discuss that with several of the most knowledgeable users in the platform and get pretty high quality answers and get to meet interesting people. So that's another place to look for help. And you know, that's pretty much what I had in mind for today. So on my behalf, thank you so much for engaging with us. It's a dream come true for us to have people really asking us a lot of questions about our baby, and we'll be here to take it to the next level. So Raimondo has posted a very nice book here called A Definitive Guide to Position Sizing for by Van Tharp. I'm not a trader myself, so I excuse myself for not knowing the names, but I will send this to Tim, whose personal email address I happen to have, so he can play around with that one too. So yeah, without further ado, if you don't have any more questions, again, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure, and we look forward to the next one. We typically run these. I think we've done this once every quarter. I think that feels about the right sequence of time, because if we do it less often, there's too many questions that build up. If we do it more often, there's not enough material no new stuff to discuss. So we look forward to the, spring Ask Me Anything session. And I would take the opportunity to thank everybody and wish them a very happy Christmas if we don't get to speak before the end of the year, and happy beginning of 2019. We will be here to continue on the mission, and rest assured that everybody's working their butts off to make the platform better for the best traders out there. Thank you so much. Javi, anything you want to add?
No, thank you for following us and supporting us, and that knowing that we are still working every day to improve the platform as it was the first day of Darwinex. So thank you for all the patience also, because sometimes we don't get that to do things so fast as we would like to do. But as I said, we are still having the same fun and the same willing to continue developing the platform for the good of everyone.
Okay, well, that's pretty much it then. So thank you guys so much. Again, happy Christmas. Don't get too fat over the Christmas period, and you know, come back with renewed strength for the next webinar. That's all we can say. Cheers, guys. Take it easy. Bye-bye.